Time for another edition of RealConvo with Alan Mednick and Miranda Khan. Making a difference because you matter.
Yeah, this is a, as Miranda likes to put it, a big deal.
It's a really big deal. It really is.
So you know what else? So Miranda, you know how I always tell you some stories? You always like to hear my stories.
I love story time.
Okay.
Story time with Alan.
Yeah.
Alan and I are two good people to know for stories.
Well, Miranda really likes my stories. So when Miranda, you know how like when, you know, like your sister first passed away and my daughter just passed away, we talk about like we're trying to figure out what to do. You know, you just had that urge that you had to do something, but you didn't know what it was. So you start reaching out, you start calling everybody. And, you know, I reached out to my sister, and my sister told me about our guest today, who is just an unbelievable person. But the story that I want to get to on it is when we ended the call, and she told me all about her mission and everything else and everything that was going on. When we ended the call, what she said to me was the most lasting effect that had on me to this day. And she just said, Alan, yeah, it was amazing. It was like, Alan, I just want to let you know you matter. And when she said that to me, it just like shook me. Like I felt like I still feel like pins and needles inside.
Yeah, he loves it so much. You say it all the time.
Yeah,
he kind of stole it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what? That is our mission, is to spread that message. So he's spreading our word and mission, and to me, it's heartwarming.
Well, it meant a lot, and I do want to introduce Sue Rosenstock, from the founder of You Matter. So welcome to the show. Welcome to RealConvo.
Hi.
How does it feel? Because obviously you matter a lot to Alan. I mean, the man has severe ADHD, and that has stuck with him. That's probably one of the few things that have stuck with him. I'm just playing with him. But no, it's true. I don't think, and this is not to put down any other guest, I don't think I've heard him rave and get so excited about having a guest on our show as much as he has with you. So I am so excited to have you on.
No.
Well,
so no pressure at all.
Yeah. Look, it goes in and out of the picture.
Yeah.
Well, just like my hat does too.
Yeah. The disappearing glass and the disappearing hat. For the people that are listening and can't see it, but yes.
So the reason why I am so enamored by you is because like I try to, you know, bring my voice out there. I try to talk about it and do things, but you get to a certain point where you just get stuck and you really don't know what to do. And you took that passion along with you're going to tell us a story, I'm sure, about other friends, and you brought it nationwide, and you brought it into other areas that really are making a big difference. I do want to go back and just tell us a little bit about what You Matter is and how that got started, if you don't mind.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's great to be here repping You Matter. You Matter is spelled umttr because the kids say that the only vowel is the U because it's you that matters. So that's why they spelled it like that.
Smart kids.
Mm-hmm. May 20th will be 7 years ago that I lost my son Evan to suicide, and the whole experience, it was a back injury, a basketball surgery, and then he felt hopeless that he could ever play basketball again. And he told us that he didn't feel right. So of course, you know, we did the battery of physical tests, whatever, saw a doctor, went on meds, and unfortunately Evan was the commercial and the warning that antidepressants can cause increased thoughts of suicide in young adults. And thank goodness I worked on a floor. Go figure, you know, you're put in places that play with the FDA in my building in Rockville, Maryland, and they helped me report it. So Celexa is no longer prescribed for people under 21. So since this was such a shock to everybody, I mean, you know, for Evan, his friends were, wait a minute, he just had surgery and now we're at his funeral? What's going on? So for different friend groups came to me and said the exact same words, which was, if this could happen to Evan, this could happen to anyone, and I'm scared. I don't want to lose another friend. So I said, wow, and I better get these 4 groups of kids together. And in some way, life prepares us along the way for what we're doing. In my entire career, it has been I spent 30 years in the nonprofit world, and then became an accountant, but it's all laid the groundwork for me to be able to help with umttr. So the kids got together, and 4 months after Evan had passed, they had their first 3-on-3 basketball tournament, because Evan was a basketball player, and raised money. And
Hey, Sue, I'm sorry to interrupt. We got a clip from one of Evan's friends. I'd like to play that.
And one day, one of my bunkmates comes up to me, and he very solemnly wakes me up early in the morning and looks me in the eye, and he said, "You were friends with Evan Rosenstock, weren't you?" And when he said the word "were," I kind of got a little bit unsettled, and I said, "Yeah?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Evan killed himself this morning." Do you hear that? Silence. The best way I can relate to you guys what that feels like to be given news like that is that silence goes from being a sound, or lack thereof, to being a feeling, something deep in your bones. This is something that I never want anybody to have to experience ever again. So I did what any normal person would do, and I kind of sulked around for the next couple days, feeling sorry for myself, feeling sorry for Evan's friends and Evan's family. And one day, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, you know what? This isn't doing anybody any good. I'm not making myself feel better. I'm not making anybody else feel better. And it was at that moment that I decided, you know what? I'm gonna take this negative situation, this thing that happened that was by far the worst thing that has ever happened to me, and create positive reverberations in my community. I thought the best way to honor Evan would be to create a basketball tournament in his memory, because him and I were teammates on the basketball team together. And that's exactly what I did. And on September 15th of last year, we held the tournament where over 300 teams came out to play basketball, learn about suicide awareness, and have fun. And we raised over $25,000. But let me tell you something. We're not done. This is an issue that affects everybody. So there's no finish line. There's only room for growth. The biggest source of gratification that I've gotten through all of this is the possibility, not even the knowledge, but the possibility that I might have played a role in saving somebody's life. And that's something that justifies the work I did 1,000,000 times over. I think the most important thing that I've learned is that there's a right way to live and there's a wrong way to live. And the right way to live encompasses being passionate about things and doing things not only for the betterment of yourself, but for the betterment of others, and most importantly, creating things.
And from there, I thought it was going to be similar to most local tragedies, in the sense that, you know, somebody's good friend died and there's a big surge of people who want to get behind whatever their mission is or process to get through it, because everybody is healing. But then what happens typically in these crises is, you know, they're only as high as the next crises. Okay, so somebody else has a cancer walk or whatever event, and then everybody gets behind that. Well, what surprised me, and I think, Alan, this is what you were referring to, is that when these kids graduated high school, Evan was 16 years old, and when they graduated high school, they took the message with them to college. So they started chapters at colleges and universities all over the country. And I was shocked that they would want to continue this, but they did. And I think the piece of it that's really important to remember is the fact that I think what got them to that point is that it's a peer-led program. Mm-hmm. So they have control over it. And so, yeah, so now we're in colleges, universities, multiple states, high schools in Connecticut and New York. And I mean, it's just, who knew?
So
How
when's-
does that, I can see, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Miranda. Go ahead.
No, I can see this beautiful smile on your face. And I think you're right. You know, I mean, I, you know, did a walk in honor, you know, of my sister. Will it get bigger? You know, maybe not. I mean, you know, you always kind of go in there with lower expectations. So when you saw that blossoming into something that was like spreading almost like wildfire all around the country, what was your reaction when you saw that, oh my gosh, like, I cannot believe this is happening?
It was happening unbeknownst to me a lot of the time, until they needed official paperwork to have an official club at these campuses. And then I would find out that this group of kids has been meeting. And I mean, I'm just blown away that they want to do it. And then they invite me to come and speak and, you know, be part of it. But they've gotten all their approval through the university. They're a club at a university level. And like, for example, my daughter went to the University of Michigan. They were the first club to start, because Allison, that was between her freshman and sophomore year. So sophomore year, she went back, and it turned out a freshman, her mom died by suicide, and they were both on the equestrian team. So Allison kind of took this girl under her wing. And her mom had passed 4 days before she went to college. And so Allison kind of took her under her wing, and the two of them really went to the university and started the first chapter. And they were interviewed by the Michigan Daily, and they said, well, what makes you different than Active Minds and other mental health, maybe peer groups that are out there? And the difference is that we really focus on the athletic piece, about really bringing mental health to athletics, through youth athletics all the way through professional athletics. And the next day, Allison gets a call from the University of Michigan Athletic Department, which I had to laugh about, just because who gets a call from the Michigan Athletic Department?
Your daughter.
Clearly.
She's good. Clearly she takes after mom just a little bit. There.
Just a bit.
Just a bit, yeah. All that non-for-profit work and accounting. Yeah, I think that you know, rubbed off on her.
More than you probably know.
Yeah.
It's so what ended up happening, like, for example, at the University of Michigan, UMatter holds a seat on a committee called Athletes Connected for the University of Michigan's athletics to be cared for in mental health. And so all the mental health groups on campus that have been invited to this Athletes Connected group really help. So
how does that work? How does it work? Just, I mean, I was realizing we say it's athletic related, but for people that are maybe interested, that are watching this program, watching RealConvo, they may want to start one. So how does it work?
Well, typically it works best if it comes organically from a kid. Okay. And they have a couple friends who say, hey, you know, we really feel like there are a lot of things that we could do on campus to help promote positive mental well-being. So they go out with messages of hope, help, and strength, not shock, trauma, and sadness. And so when they're ready to start, one of the things is we'll have that conversation about what our messaging is, so that we make sure that we keep the messaging. We provide the logo for them so that it's standard with our high school, college logo theme kind of thing. And from there, they really, they monthly, some chapters are more active than others, but monthly they'll come up with a topic of some sort, like healthy activities. Okay, so what healthy activity can we do this month, or what healthy activity can we highlight this month? And it might be just as simple as, hey, you know, my friends at my dorm decided to take a walk outside. That was our healthy activity, because we're not able to walk outside right now.
Yeah.
And you know what the most important thing when I talk to Sue about this is, the activities are important, but, just the visuals. I mean, you guys have T-shirts and lanyards, and from our talks in the past, you said that gets the message out more than anything.
It's interesting because all the swag that's on the table there,
I was checking it out. Don't worry.
Yeah. swag on the table there, it is stuff that they told me would resonate with their peers. And most of my time is spent protecting that peer voice. Okay. So typically, we as adults, a lot of times, might not use a lanyard because we have those big keys now. It's hard to get the lanyard on that thing. And so we wouldn't think a lanyard would be as useful as a high school kid who's just, a latch key or has a house key on it and, doesn't want to lose it. So he carries a lanyard or she carries a lanyard. So what ends up happening is, how do you get to be the lanyard of the day? Right? And that's where the kids come in, to be able to create the messages that make them proud to wear the message of You Matter.
Now, as far as the clubs go themselves, do the kids get any kind of training? Is there any type of awareness on, how to find out or how to talk to another kid if he's depressed or suicidal?
They do not have any sort of formal training. We will talk about bringing in training, for example, like an AFSP program, or a lot of times I'll go out. I visited most of these colleges and will speak for them there. And a lot of times what I will do depends on how active each college is and university, which is what is really important, is that they're not all the same. They each have to be independent and have to do what works for them in their culture, in their school, in their setting, or what have you. So some of them will say, hey, Sue, I want to have our executive board have a monthly call with you, and then we'll do that. But all of my calls with them only lead them to answering their own questions.
Right.
So it's a constant flip to them. Well, how would you want to accomplish that?
So it's empowering in themselves.
Yeah, it sounds very much like that. It sounds like that's very much been the key to your success, that it's very peer driven. Mm-hmm. It's not cookie cutter all across the board where you're dictating you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. And you're really empowering these young adults or teenagers to lead the discussion in a way, which I think is different, right? I mean, teenagers, look at us. We have the attention spans of gnats. And when you're a teenager, you don't want to listen to someone like us. You want to listen to someone that, you relate to. So I can totally understand that. Mm-hmm.
Well, and again, it's the same thing like I was talking about before about my son, how when we put him into the inpatient facility, the only way we found out is by his friends. His friends called us up and told us that they were worried about him, what he was texting. And, we didn't have any clue. He seemed fine to us. So it is something that they need to be empowered. And I think it's a great way to train them to do that. I do want to get into something else because, again, like I said to you, Sue, and I said to Miranda, that, she's just not somebody that's, just started a little nonprofit and thought it was going to go away and this and that. It kind of grew into bigger and better things. And, you talked in front of the Maryland legislature, I believe. Mm-hmm. You've done that, and you've also started other organizations. Well, it's not organization, but to change direction.
Yes.
I want to get into that a little bit now. And
you want to change direction? You like
I want to. Yeah, I got that. That's good.
That was good. I like that. That was good, Miranda.
I get 1 point today.
Yeah, actually, I was going to mention before you get 2 points because you mentioned blossom before. You're going to blossom, and then over your head is the word blossom. So that was pretty cool.
Thank
you. Cute. March 5th, 2015, we bussed several busloads of high school kids and others that were we were 1/4 of the audience in white shirts that filled up the museum in Washington, D.C. for the announcement of the campaign to change direction in mental health. So backing up a little bit, to give you a little bit of history about it, is after the Sandy Hook shootings happened in Newtown, the White House convened its first conference on mental health. And out of that conference came a committee of citizens, people from all different industries that could possibly help, that would be able to come up with 5 signs similar to stroke and heart, having a national public health campaign about something that may not be able to be seen as easily as the signs of stroke and heart. So they came up with the 5 signs, which is a personality change, agitation, withdrawn, poor self-care, and hopelessness. And the idea is that you see that in yourself or someone else, you want to reach out, connect, offer help, and inspire hope.
Yeah.
And nobody expects anybody to be a psychologist with this, but the point being, Michelle Obama kicked off the campaign. The presidents of most of the mental health associations, AFSP, psychiatrists, psychologists, were all there. And so as a founding member, our job is really to really elevate and expand the message of those 5 signs.
How did you get involved with that, though? How did you get on as a founding member? How did you matter become? That's a good story.
It's not what you know, it's who you know. Okay, we live in DC. Okay,
That's in any line of work.
Yeah. So at the time, we're living in DC, and one of Evan's closest friends is a young man named Justin Kay. And Justin Kay had a girlfriend in high school, and he would constantly tell me about what his girlfriend's mom was working on. Well, his girlfriend's mom is the founder of Give an Hour, which is an organization, a nonprofit that gives free mental health services to returning veterans and their families, as well as now other crises in the same family of like the mass shootings, and I'm sure they're offering help through the coronavirus thing. So Give an Hour is this organization that this woman, Barbara Van Dalen, started at that point about 10 years ago. And she was one of the people in that meeting, that committee of people at the after the White House Summit on Mental Health. So it's really because Justin's girlfriend's mother, okay, that's how we got involved. And they noticed, luckily Barbara is somebody who is a psychologist herself, but listens, and they noticed that through all their founding members and things, that they had nobody that represented kids. So it became something that was an easy insert for us. So, but we take our mission seriously. And the year after the first summit that we had and the launch, there was an event in England overseas with Prince Harry and their group called Heads Up, I think it's called. And so they came up with 5 healthy habits for emotional well-being, which is really where we start. And those are to take care, check in, engage, relax, and then know those 5 signs that I was speaking about earlier. So those healthy habits we then take and we will put into a poster, just a simple poster. And these are posters where if I were to walk into a school administrator and say, would you put up these posters in your classrooms, they'd say, no way. So once again, the empowerment of the kids They bring the posters to the teacher and say, will you put this in your classroom?
So
Much different.
change in direction. You also use it in You Matter too. Obviously, that's
Oh,
your formula.
absolutely. 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 In fact, May 18th to the 24th is coming up with the week to change direction. And last year when we had this, with the use the hashtag either change direction or change mental health, we reached 43 states, 42 countries, and over 10 million media impressions over the time period. But I mean, countries like Kenya are out there going, I know the five, and that kind of stuff. So it really has become a worldwide message that, yes, we have been part of, and AFSP is as well. So if you really, I'm sorry, this makes me laugh, but we are at the same level as AFSP in that organization as a founding member. So
Hey, you should be. Hey, you know what?
these kids, army of kids.
Yeah.
You know what? AFSP started off in '87 with I think 3 people. You know,
Right.
and it grows. I mean, now we have 74 chapters, 50. You know, all 50 states. You're doing the same thing, and when it's something that is meaningful and you have passionate people behind it, you could do anything. So you're doing a lot here. By the way, I wanted to mention, and that's why she is a big deal. I wanted to mention before the Michelle Obama clipping.
Today, nearly 1 in 5 Americans are living with a mental health condition, from our children and grandparents to our veterans, coworkers, and neighbors. For all of us, our mental well-being is just as important as our physical health. But unfortunately, most of us don't know how to recognize the signs that someone is in emotional distress. And so many of those who are having difficulty can't get the help they need. Together, we can change this. We can start by visiting changedirection.org and learning the 5 signs that may mean someone is struggling and needs help. And then it's up to us to show compassion, to reach out, connect, help folks find the hope and the support they need. Together, we can change the story about mental health in America. Together, we can change direction.
That's actually on your website too, and give your website out.
It's umttr.org, and actually we're about a few days away from launching a new site. So umttr.org and it's again spelled with a U as the only vowel, umttr.org, because the only vowel is the U, because it's you that matters.
That's
Now,
right.
I'm glad you said that, because when Alan was talking about you and I was kind of doing some background information, there's You Matter is spelled differently. So I wanted to make sure that I was looking at the right organization. So again, that website. And so if someone is interested that's watching this at, starting a chapter in their high school or university, how do they get in touch with you? Do they go to the website or you personally?
They can go to the website, and my personal cell phone is there.
Wow. See, down to earth, a big deal, but down to earth nonetheless.
Just the way you got to be.
So how many chapters do you have? Do you know offhand?
17 at last count. We have 23 high schools and 17 colleges. So.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And that's in how many states?
Right now, well, the high schools are in 4 states, and the colleges are all over. We have Pepperdine to Penn State to Michigan to Towson. So they're all South Carolina, UNCW. So they really are all over. And it's really interesting because I'll get an email, pardon me, or a text from a kid saying, I know I'm a senior now, but I want to leave a legacy at my school. And in college, it's a big deal. I mean, between 10 to 34, it's the second leading cause of death. So it's the second leading cause of death of college students. And so they are very, very, very aware of it. So anything that they are empowered with that can give them some kind of control, right? We're all looking to have control over our life right now. Who has
Right.
control over your life right now?
No, it's so interesting you say that, because when I went to my high school reunion, I think we had lost 5 students, and every single one of them was by suicide.
Wow.
Every single one. It was it was like almost mind blowing, but you don't hear enough about it. You know, how do you know? And obviously you're successful, but have you had students who have come to you and said, because of this, we had someone reach out to us who was showing that the change of direction, those 5 signs that you mentioned, and because of that, we were able to help that person?
One of my favorite stories to tell, similar, I hope I'm answering the question, is it was an AFSP walk, and it was the National Capital Area chapter, which we typically would walk in the Maryland area, which is a much smaller walk than going downtown in DC for the full-blown walk where there are thousands of people. So we had our You Matter walk team, and we were gathering our students who were all getting there, and and so their math teacher is the club leader, all right, and he says to me, "Oh, look, there's somebody over there with a You Matter shirt. They're probably looking for us." Well, running is typically not in my vocabulary, okay? I took off on, of course, what felt like a sprint to me, which at somebody else meant like I was kind of walking fast. Anyway,
Speed walker. We call those speed walkers.
Yes.
exactly. So I saw this girl, and it's very difficult to park in DC, and especially when there's something like this going on. And so I said, "Hi," I said, I said, "You Matter?" Because she's wearing a shirt. And she said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, I'm so lost, and we don't know where to park, and all of these kinds of things, logistical questions and all this stuff." And I said, "Okay, let me help you." I said, "My name is Sue." She says, "Sue Rosenstock?" You would have swore I was Springsteen. I was a little embarrassed, except I said yes. And she said, "Oh my gosh." She said, "You have no idea." I said, "Okay." And we hugged, and we're both crying now. And she whispers in my ear, "You saved my life." And I said to her, "You saved mine."
Oh, that is
Now
so
you're
nice.
gonna get me to cry. That's gonna be amazing.
It's beyond. I mean, just beyond. When you can really know that you touch somebody's life, and because of, again, the pure lead aspect of it, they're so empowered to tell me these things, and they do.
Yeah.
And
What do
that's
you think
that's
your
a
son would say?
Pardon?
What do you think your son would say? Like, what would he be thinking about all of this?
Oh, well, I mean, not to sound weird, but Evan does talk to me all the time. His
No,
number
not weird
44.
at all. I talk to my sister all the time. Totally with you.
So Evan's basketball number was 44, and the 44s come up to the point that we went to see his friend play basketball, who I took another kid who played basketball with them, all right, and I'm like, "Oh, well, look at the score. If that kid hits a 3-point play, it's going to be 44-44. Kid hits the 3-point shot. Coach calls timeout. It's 44-44 with 44 seconds left in the fourth quarter.
Oh my God.
Oh, I just got chills. I
I'm
do.
thinking to myself, do other people see this? I
Yes.
mean, I really was worried that I was, and Jesse's looking around too, the other boy that I brought. So Bobby ended up winning the game, but afterwards we told him it was just wild. So what do I think my son would say? I think my son would say, "Keep going, Mom," because he was that kid that his class had to win the pennies for patience, not because they had to win, because it was important to raise pennies for patients, when he was 6 or whatever. But that's Evan's personality, is that he was always the one helping, and more than I ever knew.
I mean, that's what's amazing.
Yeah, actually, so you mentioned something, and this is something that I told Miranda when I first met her, and it turned out to be obviously true because we all know it is. But when you start talking and people start hearing your story, you start getting people talking to you, and you really do help people out. And I believe we all save lives by just talking and letting everybody know that, yes, it's okay to talk about it. I lost a daughter, I lost a niece, my son struggles, you know, it's okay, I'm talking about it. And then people come up to you, and it really does save lives. And Miranda has told me that she's had people reach out and just tell them stories, right?
Yeah. He told me in the beginning, I was like everyone else, very uncomfortable. And it took me like 2 years to be able to say that word out loud. But as soon as I did, the response I got was just like, I couldn't have anticipated it. You know, I've said it before on our show that I had people over, 10, 15, 20 years, people I knew never told me they had lost a friend or a family member to suicide, reach out to me. And in fact, I mentioned this the other day, but this is a prime example. And I really owe Alan a lot for this. I went up, it was a charity event. It was the first time, let's be bold. It's the first time I'm going to get in front of like thousands of people to tell the story. And I literally was so nervous. I hadn't emceed in a while, right? I'm so nervous. I think of all the things to talk about. So I go up there, and I think I literally said, "You can do this." And I think the mic caught it. I was thinking it. I literally said that. But a woman that was there with me, who I've worked with a few times, and we're going to try to have her on the show. She came up to me and she said, I lost my brother. I lost a fiance. And guess what? My husband lost his brother to suicide. And then I had another guy, my son's suicidal, these are all people I've known. And because of that, they were comfortable to talk to me. And not just that, the woman who lost her brother and her fiance many years ago, she actually said it on stage.
Wow.
After she heard me say it. So there's a ripple effect to what you're doing too. It really is.
Very much so.
Yeah, it's really amazing because not only like we talked about the voice and just saying it, but just what you wear. Because like I tell everybody, every time I wear and I wear it all the time, my Out of Darkness shirt or something, and no matter where. I
say your cowboy hat.
No. Actually, that is going to be my trend right now for suicide prevention. But anyway, when I wear the shirt, people come up to me and talk to me all the time about it and tell me their story. So it's not just about even talking. It's about, even just wearing something makes a big difference. Even the You Matter.
Look at that. There's some swag right there.
There we go. So it's really, and people ask me about that too. Yeah. So I do want to get to one point, though. I mean, obviously, we're in a pandemic now, and we have, all the kids are at home doing their school at home now. And obviously, it's probably a tough time for these clubs to be together, the groups to be together. But are you making plans for when they go, or they making plans for when they do go back to school? It might be tough for them even when they go back to school. This year is probably over, but, still, it's a tough time for the kids right now. Is there anything that we're doing or is being done for that?
Well, actually, I've been approached just recently about doing an activity with a high-risk population of boys who are all in their homes now because of the quarantine. And their homes are very high risk. And these are the kids who need to put their meds with their neighbor because their parents take their meds. And so probably that's been the one that I find to be the most meaningful, in the sense that I really feel like there can be a positive message with that. We have stickers. Again, with the swag, we have stickers that say you are not alone, and it gives the text and the text hotline, crisis line, and the suicide prevention lifeline. And so I think what the administrators are going to do is write little notes to them and put in one of those stickers and mail them to their house, so they get an actual piece of snail mail that they can open up that just says you are not alone.
Yeah.
Simple as
That's
that,
important.
and you matter.
That's actually huge, though. I mean, not to interrupt, but I was reading a study about that, and I posted it on the Blossoms of Floraland Facebook page, where they did a study many, many years ago. There was an article about that, where something as simple as that, writing a letter and just telling people things like "you matter," or put your hand to your chest. You hear that? That's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Little things like that had some of the most significant impact in preventing suicide. I know how much a thank you note can mean to somebody, but I was really I found that profound. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just thought that was interesting that you brought that up. And I didn't know if does that have anything to do with that study? Did you guys
I've never heard of that study. I've just been a mother who's insisted that my children write thank you notes, handwritten thank you notes from the day they could.
I
Yes.
love you.
It's just been one of those things that I've always done. So when it was kind of like an easy one to throw out there, and of course they loved it and embraced it. But that's what we're doing, is we're talking to the chapters about, or the really more the leaders of the chapters now, about things they can do now.
Yeah, because right now is when people need it the most. I mean, we all know depression, anxiety, and everything, and suicide rates are climbing, unfortunately, during this climate. So now more than ever, which is why I reached out to Alan to even try to do this kind of podcast, because I thought, well, we can't abandon people now. This is when people need us the most, you know?
I honestly find it to be, encouraging. So, okay, there are things we can't control, right? We talk about control, and we can't control this. We can't control. However, there are things in our control, and in my personal opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, that at the end of this kind of pandemic, people will have been in the trenches. It's similar to if somebody in the family dies of cancer who had been on hospice, where the family has been in the trenches together, they're making decisions together, they're talking to the doctors together, they're all on the same page and know what's going on, okay? There's some level of control that they have in there. When somebody dies by suicide, very often in a family, what happens is everybody goes into their own lifeboat and rows the only way that they know how. Mm-hmm. And so a matter of bringing together people in a setting now where you're sequestered at home with everybody, being able to come up with a little bit of creativity, as well as we've been talking to the leaders about doing more parent-student activities together. Instead of the kids doing most of this stuff, it'll be like the parents and the kids. And when I do this, I typically will give a heads up to the parent that I'd like the student to be in control. And as hard as that is for a parent to do, it is. But my thing is, at the end of all of this, we will become kinder and a little bit more gentler, because we will have been in those trenches together. And my hope is that people aren't as focused on politics or parties or things along those lines, but be able to heal in a way, because no matter who lives in your house, what party lives in your home, you've been there now, but you've been in the trenches together, okay? You're not rowing away from each other like we were 6 months ago.
Right.
So in my opinion, that's really my hope, is that we're able to do that. And the second thing is that I really hope and see, as you just said, Miranda, which is that mental health will become a little bit more out of the darkness and a little bit more able to speak about, less stigmatized, in the sense that, wow, these feelings happened to me when I was quarantined, because again, if we can normalize these behaviors and be able to understand and let kids understand that everybody gets sad, okay? We all get sad,
Yeah.
okay?
But it's even harder, I think, for men. I mean, maybe not as much as it used to be, but men were told, like, don't be a sissy, don't cry, don't be this. And girls are naturally taught to express themselves, right? I mean, I hope that changes a little bit where young boys don't feel bad about expressing their feelings, because that's part of being able to deal with their mental health.
Yeah, and there's also some demographics too that are brought up that way. Machismo. You got to be tough. You got to, you can't talk about things like that. So, and that's got to be broken too. That stigma. So,
it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on. So it's a joy. I mean, you were on the radio show. I was thrilled when you were coming on that. Actually, we had a big surprise that you were down in Florida at the time too. So I was glad about that.
And awesome.
Wait, you're here, I'm here. Wait, how could that be?
And now you're expanding. You're expanding. You matter to Florida now too.
Yes, we are. We are. And as soon as we can figure out after this is all over what the schools will look like, I think that kids during this time will be more resilient with the changes, because the only thing constant in their life and ours as well is change. But their level of change, I think, happens so much faster than ours that they're a little bit more accepting of it. Not that change is always good, but it's not always bad either. I mean, I'm sure there will be family members that come out of this and say, when they're grown up and say, hey, we had this situation where for a month or 6 weeks we had to stay home, but you know what, we played board games and that was probably my favorite time with my parents. I mean, they may not understand that now, but and during this time, one of the biggest things that I have been trying to convey to teenagers from an adult perspective, which is, and very rarely do I do that, very, very rarely, is my very short response to most. I can't fix their problems. I can't, I'm not listening to their parents. I'm listening to one side. I'm listening to a perspective. And so my answer to all of that is to get respect. You have to give respect.
Yeah.
And that's what it all amounts to.
Yeah.
And we should all be reaching out now. I mean, again,
Absolutely.
Right now, so we go through these days, whether you're working or you're a kid in college, because kids in college, time goes so fast. You're in a routine, you're getting up, you're going to school, you're coming home, you're doing your homework. If you have any extra, if you have to go to work while you're in college, whatever, and the routine goes over and over again. And life passes by so fast. So when you get into a moment like this where you can actually sit back and take a break and think about it, sometimes it's really good to change up what you've been doing. I really should be working out more. Maybe I could, create something, write a book, whatever it may be. It's something that's really good right now. And I see so many people on Zoom right now. Look, I told you I was on Zoom yesterday in Ontario, Canada. I mean, You go back to when we were in high school. I was in high school in the 1980s. We didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones. If we did have a phone in the house, we did have a phone in the house, but you only had one phone in the house. But you had to be careful. There was no way I was calling Canada up because the fees would have been way too much.
Oh
back
my
then.
gosh. And especially if it wasn't a Sunday.
Yeah. Remember?
Oh my
night.
gosh, I forgot about that.
Or night.
Right. I was just waiting for you to talk about the outhouse and how you had to go uphill both ways. I was waiting for that.
I wasn't.
Story.
No, I wasn't like that.
Without shoes.
No,
That's
but
right.
but seriously,
A politician that said that once.
But seriously, think about it. How would these kids have finished school this year? They would have all had to get left back probably a year because they couldn't have finished their schooling. There's no way.
To be honest, I feel like that's a gift. I feel like this has been a gift to these children in the sense that they may not, again, realize it right now. They may be struggling. But I do think that these kids are so on board with electronics or
well, it's being flexible. It's being flexible.
Yeah.
going
They
with
are. So now seeing everybody on a Zoom, okay,
Yeah.
in like probably 3 days, they were used to it
Yeah,
for their class.
exactly. You know, one question I wanted to ask you before we wrap things up, that we didn't really discuss, and obviously we talked about suicide rates going up, and you mentioned it was the second leading cause of death, for, I believe it's actually going as young as 10, isn't it?
10 to 34.
10 to 34. But I thought I recall seeing the CDC saying that suicide rates have tripled in the past few years. You probably know that exact statistic better than I do, but I'm just curious as to what you would attribute to the increase.
I don't know the statistic, but I mean, my personal feeling about this, I have um, no research or anything behind me, is part of it is I think that it's being reported more. Okay. Part of it is that the shame and stigma and everything that we've all talked about when we mention a suicide, how many other people come up and tell us their family member, friend, blah, blah, blah. So I think part of it, and don't tell anybody, kind of thing. So I think a lot of it, was the fact that it wasn't reported as much. But I also think that obviously social media, when we were kids, if you had a bully on the playground, you could leave that bully in school. You didn't take that bully home with you. And in today's unfortunate experience with these kids, that bully can be with them 24 hours, 7 days a week. And the things that they are able to do because of the technology, like setting up false profiles and then awful stuff that I mean I wouldn't have even imagined, but they tell me. So I think that not being able to remove themselves and get back to their family unit, because as we know, family support is a protective factor. So when you and I went home from school, even though we might not have liked our mom as much, we were teenagers or whatever, there was no bully on my phone every 20 seconds or what have you. And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of parents are listening to their children. I really don't. I don't think the parents are listening to their children. And so I think those two things I would say, if I were to ask for my top two, those would be it: technology and parents.
Well, what you say on that is one of the things we talk about is dismiss, or avoid. And those are things that would happen a lot. Either people are going to, just miss the signs, or they're going to avoid the signs. It's basically, that you don't want to deal with it, or it's not real. And that's why programs like yours and AFSP and everybody else out there to get the voice out there is so important. For people to understand that, look, if someone's saying something, don't dismiss it.
Right.
So.
And there's no doubt about it. Once those words cross your lips, it's out. Okay. And that's what people are afraid of, is they don't want to tell anybody because it's real. Then it becomes real. I've now verbalized it. It's real. Okay. When it's inside, it may not seem as real. But once you've now told somebody, it's real, and now you have to deal with it. So hopefully we can get people to talk.
Yeah. Lastly, I just want to go. So you have the 3-on-3 basketball tournament. Are you doing that this year? Is that canceled?
No, we're not. We're not going to do it this year. We had a good run of 5 years, and what we're trying to do is listen to the kids. I mean, I could want to have a basketball tournament forever and ever, but the kids who were into basketball have graduated college already. So we're listening to the kids. So we have a fun run plan, and we're looking, well, if we cannot have a physical gala, we're going to have our first awards program where Barbara Van Dalen, the woman who created Even Hour and the Backbone, and for the campaign, will be our honoree. So we're really excited about that, because Barbara has now been appointed to a White House Committee for the Veterans Administration, which is to solve the national tragedy of suicide,
That's awesome.
beginning with our veterans.
Yes.
And when I sent her my first note, okay, it wasn't handwritten, it was on an email.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. I'm so excited. As soon as I heard the news, and her response was, we're not stopping with veterans.
Sue, thank you so much. We hope Bickle's okay
Alan.
there.
Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you. Oh, wait, before we go.
Yes, I was waiting for that.
But I don't want to.
No, wait a minute. We have to do one thing together, though. Sue, we want
Okay.
you to know that you matter.
Matter.
There you go.
Thank you. You matter
So-
to me too.
Thank you so much, Sue.
For more Real Convos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.